An error occurred. Well, that's exciting. Okay, and I'm live. I got a message saying an error occurred, but apparently there was an error in the error. So welcome to the 19th hole. I'm Kelly in Phoenix. We're here this week to talk about the British Open, the Open 2022. Let's do it. Hello. I am coming to you live from my hotel room in beautiful Orange, California.
Ooh,
so I'm not in Phoenix today, technically.
Unfortunately, still 6 or 7 hours away from beautiful NorCal.
Okay. Thank you for the geography.
Wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
He may be wrong a few more times tonight, but he's not wrong about that.
Correct.
I
got to get that one out of the way.
Joined by my wonderful co-host, Bo, at Bo_Big Time, and Conor Coughlin at Cough_DFS.
That's me.
That's you. We're here to talk about the Open. And we have Scotch.
We have Scotch.
You have Scotch. I don't, because I am drinking a red ale, which has nothing to do with anything.
Well, what red ale are you drinking?
One from California called Sunspanked from Lazy Dog, I think.
How delightfully naughty.
Sunspank. Yeah. That's what I'm drinking. Red ale.
Got some good legs on this, baby.
Scotch.
Scotch. Here goes down into my belly.
A Highland Park 12, little Viking Honor.
I thought it said Kirkland at first.
I know, doesn't it kind of look that way?
It's a similar logo.
But yeah, no, this stuff's actually surprisingly good. Like, it's not terribly expensive either. It's like $60-$70 a bottle, but yeah, it's from way north. Like the island of Orkney.
You're just making that up now.
I swear to God, I'm not.
Orkney.
It's probably closer to how Bo pronounced it. I'm not a big Scotch guy, but this thing drinks super smooth. It's got a bunch of like orange and like kind of a little more like sour citrus stuff to it. So it's pretty damn good.
I'm just noticing it's so dark, even though I have the curtains open and every single light on in this place.
You look great.
Hey, thank you.
So I'm drinking the last of my crystal decanter. It's a beautiful crystal decanter I got on Amazon.com, little website you might never have heard of, about crystal decanter. But this is Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, so golden nectar. It's one of the sweetest, most caramely flavored scotches out there. I got it as a gift, put it in the crystal decanter because it was the nicest bottle of scotch I've ever had in my house. And then because I'm running low, I grabbed my $40 bottle of Glenfiddich 12 that you can find at any Rite Aid. And it's gonna suit me just fine once I run out of the Glenmorangie.
Love it.
If you run out of that, you just hit a 7-Eleven. You'll be in good shape.
Oh yeah, you get some Johnny Walker Red just to put some hair on someplace.
God, my grandma used to drink nothing but Johnny Walker. Little Johnny, little water, every night, every single night.
See, I can do the black or the green or any color but red. The red's just disgusting to me. It's just like gasoline.
Yeah, not for me. Not for me.
Yeah, I started with Scotch. I kind of went backwards. A lot of people will start with American whiskeys or Canadian whiskeys and kind of graduate to the complexity of Scotch because there's so many different varieties and regions of Scotland where Scotch comes from. In Scotland, they just call it whiskey with no E. And that's, for me, it's like I started with Scotch and then I kind of graduated into bourbons and ryes, which I prefer now, but I still love Scotch. Scotch is so good.
You know how to know whether to use an E or not in whiskey?
You don't.
No, for real. If the country of origin has an E in the name, then it's
Use
an
an
E in the whiskey.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Scotland, don't. Ireland, you do.
Fun fact. America.
It makes sense. Yeah. Canada, no, it's because Canada doesn't use it. They have an E in their whiskey, and there's no E in Canada. I already disproved it. Japan uses an E, and they don't have it. Come on.
I don't think Japan does actually, but Canada.
The
you might be
Suntory.
right.
Yeah, Canada
No,
uses an E
maybe
for
only
sure.
in
I've got a bottle
Montreal.
right up here. I can see.
French Canada has an E.
Do you have any Suntory back there? Go get some Suntory. See if there's an E in there.
I just got like the base Suntory.
It'll still say whiskey in their spelling.
We're literally having him get up to go check.
Yeah, so we can prove him wrong. It's a cute little euphemism he used, but is he right?
Break this to you, my friend.
Oh, right. So we got one right. So other than
Yay,
Canada,
Connor.
the rule holds true.
Yeah, and most Canadian whiskey, actually, at least anymore, a lot of it comes from the U.S. anyway. It's just aged up there differently. So,
yep, Vermont and places like that.
Yes, sir.
Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont makes a lot of the Lord Calvert and Crown Royal stuff that you drink. So,
well, it's shit. Half the bourbon and whiskey you drink, whether it's from the States or Canada, comes from MGP, and I think Indiana still.
Snap,
yeah, Whistle Pig.
I would like to say I Googled Canadian whiskey with an E, and on shopping, it's whiskey with no E.
Ah, maybe
so
Connor's onto
Connor,
something.
maybe just in Montreal, it could be like the French Canadians, maybe. They like to do that kind of stuff.
All I'll say is when I used to do a fair amount of alcohol representing most every whiskey manufacturer that I talked to, that was always the trick on how to remember.
Okay.
So,
I think
it really is true. It really is true because it's weird because Ireland and Scotland are so close to one another, but Ireland uses an E in their whiskey spelling and Scotland doesn't.
Well, and there was that fun when we did gin a while back. Like Ireland's interesting too because most, not all, but most of the distilleries in Ireland started out as gin distilleries, and the main reason they did that is you don't have to let gin age, so it kept them afloat. And it's usually the byproduct of the distillation process for the actual whiskey. So while the whiskey was aging, clear gin.
So good. So good.
Well, now that we've talked 8.5 minutes about E's or no E's and Scotch. Hello, Craig. Welcome. If anybody else is out there and wants to chat, feel free to pop in and say hello. We like to chat. And I would like to know if Connor wants, well, no, let's not dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and say, remember when I won again last week?
I actually
was the only one with a good lineup too. It was pretty putrid.
I'll be the first to raise my hand. I did not have a lot of good plays last week, actually. Like I had a few, but that was probably by far and away one of my worst weeks of the season. So congrats to you. It was a good lineup.
Thank you.
I'm back to the bridesmaid level, even though I was never close to passing up Kelly because I only had 4 out of 6. And Kelly had 5 out of 6, and plus half of the contending guys that were in the field, she had in her 5 out of 6. So it was never really close. It was the Kelly show. And what we're finding out, and what we should have found out long ago, is that Kelly kicks ass at golf DFS and betting. So if you're fading Kelly's picks, you're probably losing. And if you're combining all three of our picks, you're probably winning. And if you're just following Kelly, you're probably winning even a little bit more.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Hats off.
Thank you. Thank you.
She
say
really kicked our ass last week. So tip of the cap.
2 weeks ago, I mentioned this on the show. 2 weeks ago was the first week since I even started doing bets with Woodward even. And that's been like 3 months, I think. 2 weeks ago is the first week that I didn't win anything in DFS and I didn't win any player props. And so I think 1 week out of 3 months is pretty good to not pocket anything. So thanks. I'm very excited about that. But honestly, I learned so much from you guys. When I hear, this is probably going to sound like a backhanded comment, and that's not exactly how I mean.
It's okay.
When
that's actually the best compliments I ever got were backhanded.
When I hear what it is that you're looking at and looking for, then I'm like, shoot, maybe I should be looking at that and looking for that. And it may not necessarily be the same player, but perhaps the same strategies. There are courses, things that I learned about the courses themselves that I didn't necessarily know before. So I really have loved being on here with you guys because you've also helped to expand my own knowledge, and that's been great. So I will move on.
That was a good compliment. I didn't feel backhanded.
No, okay, good.
But I am starting to feel that my contributions to the show are purely for entertainment value because of the way I've been playing. So
complisalt.
You and I certainly aren't here for our dazzling good looks, that's for sure.
No, that's all Kelly too. Kelly's she's the legs and the heart of the
show. You're crazy. Well, now we can move on. I did want to throw out there because it was fun. It was exciting. And I also won in not just our tournaments, but in the one of those satellite ones. It was free and I put it in and I won in that one too. So that was fun. I haven't really played around in those much, but I think I will do more of that.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us, Connor, about the course this week?
The old course.
The old course.
St. Andrews, the birthplace of golf.
So if you watch golf, this place really doesn't need much of an introduction, but we are the Open Championship at the old course of St. Andrews. It's the final major of the year. This is the 150th anniversary of the Open, and St. Andrews has hosted this guy 30 times. They're one of the 10 courses that are in the rota for the Open Championship rotation. I think that this is like a really meaningful tournament to most everybody, especially at this venue. So I think you're going to see people really giving it their all this week. Not that they don't always, but hosting the Claret Jug is like a really big deal. And so especially with the history behind this week's tournament. So, so far, everything that's kind of coming out about the course is it's been super firm and fast through the practice rounds. They've got it really well dried out. Again, if you're not super familiar with the course, this is a true links style golf course, like our debate last week, which ironically, listening to the broadcast, everyone
they sure used the word links a lot, didn't they?
Sure did. But this is a traditional links style golf course. You've got super wide fairways. As a matter of fact, a lot of holes double up the fairways. So you've got some fairways that are going to be in excess of 70 yards wide. Same with the green complexes. You've got some double green situations. You can have some greens that are, I believe the largest green complex is 25,000 square feet, which is enormous compared to the typical PGA greens. Like I said, it is firm and fast right now. I would expect it to stay that way most of the week. The weather report thus far is there is moisture Thursday and Friday, maybe possibly into Saturday. Again, this is preliminary. And this is straight from the PGA website this time, Bo. The wind is projected to be actually fairly tame at this point. I think the worst wind I saw was on Friday, and it was about 16 miles per hour was what it was going to top out at. That could change 5 minutes from now. I mean, it's Scotland. You're on the coast.
Instant change.
And I would expect
St. Andrews is directly across the Blackness Bay from the Renaissance Club from last week. So very similar weather patterns where summer squalls are very common and they can pop up just like if you've ever been in a mountain range where thunderstorms just pop up out of nowhere. That's what happens here right on the shoreline of Scotland. That's the east coast of Scotland, so it's not exactly on the Atlantic Ocean. It's more of in between mainland Europe and Scotland. And so you have a lot of weird weather patterns. So you can have a sunny day, perfect weather 1 minute, and then within 5 minutes you have a downpour with 40-mile-an-hour gusts. So weather report doesn't mean as much as we think it does, but we have to expect the unexpected, expect the worst weather, and then just hope for the best.
And I do think, too, that unlike a lot of other tournaments, this is strictly a first tee. Everybody goes off the first tee. It's going to be long days. I think personally trying to target weather splits and stuff is going to be incredibly difficult with how quick the weather can change and how long stretched out the actual tournament is going to be. Speaking of length, this is a relatively short course, par 72, 7,300 yards. There are 2 par 3s, 2 par 5s. There are 7 par 4s under 400 yards, which I think is an important thing to know this week. And then the longest par 4 is actually only 480 yards, which is also another thing to know. As far as it being a traditional link style course, you've got a blend of about 3-4 more or less native grasses that comprise the rough. The rough is going to be down, but it's going to be kind of similar to some of the Poana surfaces that you come across in the U.S. with kind of that entangled grass, almost woven grass. And then outside of that, your fairways and your green are composition of bent and fescue. So pretty similar in that aspect to last week, but the blended rough grass is a little different than last week. And then, the last piece of the link style is you do have super deep pot bunkers. And on the back nine in particular, there's an out of bounds and coastal area that runs pretty much the entire way in on the right side of the course. So I'll be favoring guys that hit a right to left ball flight most likely this week.
For sure. All right. And I'd like to add that these are even flatter greens in general than last week at the Renaissance Club, where you only have 2 or 3 green complexes that have any undulation at all, but they're going to be very hard. Like you're not going to see any guys spin the ball back, especially with how dry it's been. We're going to see even more fairway rollout than we saw last week, where you might carry the ball 285 yards and it might roll out another 80 to 100 yards with the fairway being cut so close. And these fairways will not be green. Most of them are brown. That's how dry this course is. And it's like landing on an airport runway, where if you found the fairway, you're going to get a lot of distance boost. And if you miss the fairway, you're going to be penalized heavily because the course is short. It is accessible. If the wind blows, you're going to put a lot more pot bunkers into play, especially if you get wayward and you miss one of these gigantic fairways. So scoring is going to be crazy volatile. It's going to be super low for the guys that are playing well and super bad for the guys that aren't. It's going to be really tricky to figure out who's going to blow up and miss the cut by a mile and who's going to shoot a 64 on day one and be really sitting pretty.
And I do think, too, I mean, speaking to the rollout and everything, I do think that also lends itself to right to left ball flight, at least right-handed right to left ball flight players.
Correct.
That hit more of the low tumbling rolled out draws. I think if the wind does kick up or it starts to get a little more moist on the course, I think some of the guys that prefer a fade, a little higher fade, may end up actually having an advantage, being able to stop the ball pretty well on the greens. But I think just depends on what the weather ends up doing, really.
And those bunkers are not just ornamental like last week.
No, there's going to be guys in them for sure.
And they're nasty.
They're very deep. Very deep. A lot of them are, which makes it fun to watch. I was going to say something very exciting. Oh, yes. So this is exactly what I was talking about. When you talk about golfers that hit like a right to left shot, that's the kind of stuff that if our listeners are really paying attention to, can really help to build out their lineups. And like I said, it may not be the same player. They may be like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying, but I really like so-and-so, and they also hit right to left. That's kind of where I end up sometimes. So thank you for that. Secondly, in my video this week for teamriserfall.com, promo code BO or promo code KIP, save $10 off your first month. You would see that the two things that I really just focused on this week, it wasn't anything profound, actually. It was event history, and it was play over the last several events for each golfer. And we'll get into some of those players. I'm sure many of them are on the list of Bo and Conor as well. But for me, this type of tournament is for the big boys, number one. And number two, being that it is in Europe, it is also heavily favored, especially in the top 10 and top 20 by European players. So those are kind of my little nugget as I was looking at this week.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Experiential knowledge is awesome here. I think experience with link style golf is also a plus. And then I think if you're trying to look outside of those two things, some of the stats I looked at, and I think Bo probably will have some of the same ones. I did look at 3-putt avoidance. I did look at opportunities gained, shots gained approach kind of together to get a feel for how close we're getting to the hole with the giant green complexes. I did shots gained off the tee. I think that number is only going to be better this week with the super wide fairways. I think we're going to have way more scoring opportunities. I think a lot more strokes gained that way. And then I did look at scrambling, which I don't typically look at very often, but just given the conditions and the rollout that you're going to be experiencing, I think it's almost foolish to think people are going to be sticking and stopping all these greens. So you're going to have to be able to get.
They're not going to stick and stop any of them. They have pitch marks, not divots on this course. Like you're going to leave a skid mark on the green, but you're not going to leave an indentation. That's going to be bouncing at least once before it settles. I was very focused, like you said, 3-putt avoidance. These green complexes are gigantic. A lot of guys are going to be putting from 80 to 100 feet if they're off center with their approach. So 3-putt avoidance is huge. And strokes gained around the green. It's really, because even though you have large greens, you have so many reachable par 4s. And the 2 par 5s are both extremely accessible for all these players. They're not going to be 3-shot holes. They're going to be 2-shot holes, and the par 4s. A lot of times, these guys are going to be shooting for the green, and even if they miss the green, it's going to roll off into a collection area that's going to be tight lies that you're basically bump and run, or you're hitting a flop shot, or you're playing out of a pot bunker. But strokes gained around the green, I think, is going to be up there with 3-putt avoidance and birdie or better percentage for me, because I want the guys that can score and avoid those mishaps where they hit a good tee shot and then they settle for a par, which is going to kill you on this course. Because if the scoring is good and you're hitting the ball around the green and you're still not making birdies, that's a problem.
Yep. And then the last thing I'll say about stats, and it's something that I typically do not agree with going bomber heavy. I do actually like bombers this week. And the other thing too is I like drivers. I like people that drive the golf ball high 200s, like 290 plus and low 300s, especially because they're going to have that much more rollout this week. And so those 290 drives become 320, become 330 in some situations, depending on which direction you're heading on the course. So, a lot of these guys that maybe would be middling for driving, like a Colin Morikawa is somebody who comes to mind, where you take his average 290, I think it's 296, and you bump that up to about 310, 315, somewhere in there.
Au contraire, Colin Morikawa is 301.
Well, then he had a good week last week.
But, he was 301 before last week.
But you look at those guys, though, too. Like, I would not consider Colin Morikawa like I busted your chops for last week. I would not consider him a bomber. And I think this week he's in that range where the course helps him become a bomber, especially looking at how short these par 4s are. So just something to think about.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I am going to play a little music and we'll go into our picks for this week, I guess.
The club as well. This would be a wrestling slam.
Yeah, buddy. No trunk slamming around here. We only pick the ones that are there to win, right?
At least that's what we try to do.
So we try to do. So let's get right into it. You're always good about starting us off on the right foot with the right dollar amounts, Connor. So get us started here.
So we'll start with our 10K and above players. And the guy that I'll pull the Band-Aid off. This is not the guy I'm going to talk about, but I am going to play the hell out of Rory. He's the odds-on favorite.
What?
I'm telling you, like there are weeks to play Rory, and this is a week to play Rory. Knows the course, knows how to play in this stuff. He's done well here in the past. He rates out great still in almost any model you're going to look at. And like I said, I mean, he is heavily favored to win this. So I think it's maybe a little silly to try and fade Rory. And so I will have some Rory, but the guy that I'm going to go straight right back to is Justin Thomas. I'm not scared off by what happened last week. I still think he I'm not.
He looked terrible. He looked terrible.
I understand, but he's been walking the course with Tiger. He's been walking the course with Rory. He's getting out there with guys that know this course inside and out. I think he still brings the same skill set to the table. I think he's still ultimately a better player if the wind does kick up, just by stats we looked at last week. I'm not going to be scared off of Justin Thomas. And quite frankly, he's coming in at the lowest rostership percentage out of the upper 10K area right now. So I think that gives you some good leverage right off the top. So.
Sweet leverage.
So that's my number one play in there, but go ahead, hit us with something, one of you guys.
I love Rory. I like but not love JT, but if he's coming at lower rostership, then I'm gonna have some because I'm not dumb, allegedly. But as far as the $10,000 range, I'm not overly impressed because you only have a handful. It's 5 guys there, 5 guys at that price point. I like Jordan Spieth because his short game is immaculate. I don't know if he can make enough putts. That's one that used to be the strength of his game, but it isn't anymore. He's become more of a good ball striker that can get around the greens really well. He's always been a master at chipping around the greens and bunker play. So I'm gonna have some Jordan Spieth, but most of my guys are under 10K.
Well, I will take one from each of you. I really I like Jordan Spieth. Looking at what we talked about or what I talked about before too, event history and recent play, I think he's checking those boxes for me. He's 10K on the button and he's 11-1 at FanDuel. I like Rory. He checks the boxes for Europe, for recent play, for event history. I agree.
Connor's best friend ever.
Difficult to fade Rory this week, but depending on how my lineup shake out, the one I am absolutely playing is going to be no surprise to anybody, just under
Scotty Scheffler.
10K, not Scotty Scheffler. Matt Fitzpatrick. Not going to quit him. Bunking the pattern again this week. If it was going to hit the pattern, it definitely would be this week because he's not made the cut more than 3 times before he's missed one. And it's been 3 events. So it was like 3 events, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2. And now we're back at 3 again.
So 60% of the time, it works every time.
Right.
Yeah, the pattern got busted last week.
The pattern,
but we're gonna keep going.
Got busted last week. If there was, like I said, there was a 3 made cuts that slipped into the beginning of that pattern weeks and weeks ago, but I'm a little superstitious about it, but not completely. I'm going to go for it because, again, he came in 26th last year, 20th the year before. So he's making the cut. His last 3 outings, he's been 6th, 1st, 10th. We had a little pooper in there 4 weeks ago.
That was when Conor played him.
5th and 2nd. So looking at all the things you guys talked about, strokes gained, all in the pluses. Loving it, loving it, loving it. And if we get all the way over to scrambling, Matt Fitzpatrick, one of the best scramblers in this price range, to be honest, looking at his data, which I love data. So that's enough of me gushing about Matt Fitzpatrick. 9,700 on DraftKings.
So I'm gonna say 3 things briefly because we know I don't like him. So I'm not playing him. First off, I was on the fence about it earlier today. I've done some research. I've looked at some stats. There's 2 key things that terrify me about Matt Fitzpatrick, and I will say that watching him hasn't done anything to lighten my fear, as he's not great at 3-putt avoidance, and he's actually not super great at putting in general on this type of surface in windier conditions and all that. So those 2, as identified as key metrics, were plenty to talk me out of Matt Fitzpatrick. And then the other interesting thing, and a friend of mine kind of tipped me off on this, a lot of the Vegas head-to-heads that have Fitzpatrick in them have got him heavily favorited against some of the top tier guys, which to me just screams somebody thinks that they can trap a bunch of people. So I'm gonna maybe bet against Matt Fitzpatrick this week.
And that was the one thing that scared me off him too, is 3-putt avoidance, because that's weighted so heavily in what I was building this week. So on the surface, I looked at it and I was like, dude, this guy's red hot. He's playing out of his mind. He played well last week in Scotland. There's a whole different animal. St. Andrews is an entirely different animal from Renaissance Club, and you cannot even make the cut at St. Andrews if you're 3-putting. And I just don't. It for me, it's bad because there's guys in this other range, in the same range, like Xander Schauffele, who's absolutely in fuego. The guy has won 2 consecutive starts, and he's looked good leading up to that. Just couldn't push through, and now he's won 2 consecutive starts. He's at 9,900. I'd much prefer that red hot golfer over one that can't make a putt in the clutch time like Fitzpatrick. And then Cam Smith, I mean, what better person to fit your model of I need a guy who's excellent at chipping and putting than the best chipper and putter in the entire world, Cam Smith.
And Kelly also said something that I cued in on too with Fitzpatrick, is he's gotten to a price, and this is, I actually would probably consider playing Fitzpatrick if he was like even mid-8s. But when he starts getting up here in the upper 9s and low 10s, like the problem is a T20 isn't going to do it. Like he's got to, like at that point, you're saying he's top 5.
But he has been winning. I've been winning playing Fitzpatrick. So I'm going to make him my captain this week. My captain last week, even though I won, did not make the cut, Zalatoris. But I'm picking Fitzpatrick. He's been my captain before. I'm making him my captain this week. I'm doubling down.
And I'm not trying to bash you for your Fitz love.
Like, I don't think you are, but
there's a lot of people out there that love
out some other.
I grew to like him.
My biggest thing is it's more along the lines of Bo's point, is I think win equity wise at that price point, I think Schauffele, I think Zalatoris, Cam Smith, even Patrick Cantlay, I think have more win equity than Fitz. Do I think Fitz will make the cut? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. But if I don't think he's going to win and he's my first man in, I just can't pull the trigger on him.
Bingo. You mentioned my other guy, Cantlay.
Well, and we can't leave out Shane Lowry, who I'm tempted to make him my captain this week, is how confident I am in how he's going to play. So he's been red hot. He's been red hot almost all season.
Don't let me take Rory as my captain, and if you take Lowry.
I mean, that's fine because I'm going to put Rory in the lineup anyway. But yeah, I actually really like Lowry for a lot of the same reasons I like McIlroy, and I think it definitely is worth mentioning him in this upper nines because you can do some really interesting things with your lineup if you start at Cantlay, Lowry, even DJ if you want to get a little bit of leverage with a guy that's not going to be very popular, if for no other reason his affiliation now. He's rapidly become a not sexy pick, but when you eliminate accuracy, is off the tee out of the equation, Dustin Johnson smashes the living piss out of a golf ball. So I trust his short game. His driver is the thing that always kind of is a little meh. So
his past event history does not wow me.
No,
not event history, but his last outings. I mean, he came in 24th in his last outing, but before that, he had 3 really shitty weeks. So I just don't.
Well, and 24th out of 48 isn't that impressive either.
Right. I just don't see it.
Or you can use the newest live defector in Hideki Matsuyama. Get him in your player pool.
No thanks.
He's a low ball hitter. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks. Let's move on. 8s.
Yeah. 8s. I don't have anybody in the 8s that I really love.
I do.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I at 7-9 on DraftKings and 9,000 on FanDuel. Friend of the pod, Max Homa.
Not an enemy of the pod.
No.
I really like Max Homa this week. He's a good value. He's got great event history here. Not great. I mean, he's played once and he made the cut. So we're going to call it great. And then he's been playing well other than 2 outings ago. He came in 47th, which still made the cut. But he's been making every cut for the last 10 weeks. I'm going with Max Homa in my lineup. My second pick in this area will be Fleetwood. Fleetwood I picked last week. I wasn't disappointed. Came in 4th, I think. And 8,600 on DraftKings and a cool 10K on FanDuel. So Fleetwood is somebody I love because he loves to play at home for real. So I'm going to keep that streak going, seeing that he played well last week.
Let me guess. Connor likes
Fleetwood.
Neiman. He likes Joaquin Neiman, and he probably has a little bit of Louis in him and some Tyrrell Hatton.
Yeah, you know me too well. Actually, so the guys I like in the 8s, I'm actually with Kelly almost 100%. Those are actually my top 2 plays in the 8s are Homa and Fleetwood. Mr. Darrell Atten was a very, very close for second there.
I just love that guy.
Oh, man, I love watching him. But more importantly, he is, at least over the last 36 rounds, he's the number 1 putter in the world. And he is number 3 in this field over the last 36 for scrambling and around the green. So I like him. I like him on a links course too. So Hatton is somebody that I'm got a lot of interest in. Usti is in my pool right now, but he may fall out. A big reason I like him is strictly course history, which we talked about earlier in the show. He's won this and he's got 2 T2s, one of which was a playoff. So, I mean, this is a guy that has demonstrated he can play at this course. But yeah, I do like Neiman for all the same reasons I liked Neiman last week. I'm not scared off of him. I like the total skill set that he's got. So I actually have quite a few guys in the 8. Sam Burns is another guy that I'm toying with. I like that he's already a great approach player. He's been putting incredibly well, and we're going to mitigate some of the off the tee risks. So Sam Burns at $8,900 is somebody who's going to score a ton of points for you. So I don't hate that play either.
So there's a guy here in the 8s that's a glaring oversight. I think he's a misprice. He doesn't belong there. He's not going to have any ownership because nobody likes him. But ironically, he fits St. Andrews like a glove, and that's Bryson DeChambeau. You don't need to hit the fair. You don't need to be accurate to hit these fairways. He's going to be driving into most of the greens on the par fours. He's not the greatest chipper, but he makes putts. And that's one thing about Bryson is if you don't force him, if you're forcing him to basically just putt his way through making birdies, that's where he's dangerous. And we've seen him win majors just by just completely overpowering an old golf course that hasn't been updated. And St. Andrews is that course where missing a drive, hitting a drive 400 yards and 30 yards left is still in the fairway here. It still might even be on the green. And I think that because of 8,100 plus he's been playing like garbage through injuries for the last 2 years, is nobody's going to have it. So I'm gonna have a little sprinkle of Bryson DeChambeau because I think that even though it's a low probability, it's definitely a plausibility that he can go out and win this stupid thing.
Is this part of that entertainment commentary that you were talking about?
I'm with him, actually. I just
Are you like punking me right now?
Hey, I called Connor out on his BS takes, and of course I got the Hoffman one right because that was a stupid call. But then I got the one wrong last week with Ricky. Ricky Fowler played the best golf he's played in 3 years at last week's tournament. And so I was wrong. I'll admit I was wrong there, but I was right about Hoffman. So you can call me out for Bryson because I haven't played Bryson in a year and a half. I literally haven't rostered one single share of Bryson DeChambeau in a year and a half. But this is the one time I might do it.
I like Bryson exponentially more if the wind stays down. Like
bingo.
I just think he's the worst. He's so bad. Ugh.
Shall we?
We can move on.
He doesn't have kind eyes. I know that.
He does not have kind eyes.
I will 100% say, though, there is a giant star next to Bryson's name in my player pool right now. So he's in there.
No way.
So if the douchebag wins me money, then he's less of a douchebag in my eyes.
I just didn't want to bring him up because I didn't want Liv to come up. And I figured that'd be exactly where you go.
No, I don't care about Liv. Right? I don't even want to talk about Liv. But all I know is that there's a guy who's a former major winner with a course that doesn't penalize errant tee shots. So that's really what comes down to me.
Sir Kelly, would you like to kick off the sub 8?
Siebens.
Sub 8s. Why not? Sure. Like me a little Seamus Power here.
Yeah.
And I'm probably am I gonna say this out loud? No. Yes. No. Yes.
Patrick Reed.
No.
Thought about him
Good.
too.
I'm leaning for some reason. No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. Because he's going to
now you have to.
He's going to withdraw, and then I'm going to be really mad. That would be Paul Casey.
Yeah.
He'll just withdraw, and I'll be super upset about it. So I'm just like, never mind.
But that's our West Coast advantage is if he withdraws before lock, it's only at 10:35 Pacific time.
Okay.
So you and I have some advantage here on Wednesday night where everybody on the East Coast has gone to bed, or if they're staying up being nerds like us, then it's fine. You can take advantage of a withdrawal before lock. Great point. If he withdraws after lock like he did last time and he burns everybody, then you feel terrible for doing it. But I think we do have an advantage for once. The West Coast has an advantage with the PGA lock.
I really do like Paul Casey, if nothing but nostalgia and just being like a sunshiny face. And I like Seamus Power for the newness and shininess of him. And so those are my two there. I actually prefer somebody that I played last week in the 6s, but I'll save that for my finale.
I'll say Justin Rose, Sergio Garcia.
I like that too.
And of course, my favorite in the 7s is Mr. Bez, Christian Bezuidenhout, who's absolutely tearing it up right now. It's a runner-up, followed by 16th last week. He just plays well on tough golf courses, and he's playing well in general. Like you got recent form right there. At 7,300, I like to take a shot on a guy like that.
So I'll go back to Cam Young. I don't need to drone on about him. I talk about him every week.
Man, that just
Man.
crushed me
I
last
don't
week.
like that this week though, but go for it.
I'm not gonna. A young guy has a few bad rounds as he's up and coming. Like I'm not gonna.
He was
read
dead
into it.
last, dude.
I'm
Dead
not gonna-
last.
So he had a bad week. I mean, it happens. Prior to that, he was like the hottest player in the world.
No, man, he's 60th, 65th, and then 152nd. And then before that, he had 3 consecutive top 5s. And then before that, he had 2 consecutive miscuts. This guy's he's gasoline, man. He's either gonna win you a bunch or he's gonna just do what he did last week and just crush us all. Because how much exposure to Cam Young did we both have last week? And it was like a dagger.
I think
in
he's
our hearts.
projected at like 3% rostership, and you're going to say rightfully so. But I'm
going to say that changes my mind a little bit because you know how I play.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how I play too. Like I'm not trying to win $5. I'm not trying to win my money back. I'm trying to win tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars playing these tournaments. So your risk aversion is up to you. It's everybody's individual money, but I will say that that's a massive leverage opportunity in there, and a guy who has the skill set and tools to perform well. So you can go back and listen to any of our other shows to hear me drone on about Cam Young. I love him. I do like Justin Rose. I do like Sergio as well, which are weird ones for me to say. But the 3 that I'm really looking at down here are actually Mito Pereira, who had a couple of good rounds last week. Taylor Gooch, who outside of being a complete idiot every time he opens his mouth, is actually a pretty damn good golfer. And then Russell Henley is the one that snuck in my modeling that I think is a good course fit, has great approach game, has a decent putting game, and also is in the top 10, top 15 in this field for birdie or betters game. So again, if this does stay kind of a mild weather affair, like you need guys that are going to score birdies in bunches, and Russell Henley does that, and that's a great price. And especially down there where he's going to be in the flavors of the week era, where you've got Adrian Moronk and you got Ryan Fox, who people are just itching to play for whatever reason. I mean, I think they're good golfers, but do I think that they have any more win equity than anybody else in this range? Not really. And I had my opinion of Ryan Fox last week, and he's at a lower price this week, which does make him more enticing, but I still don't like the play over who he's sandwiched around. I'd rather play Harris English. I'd rather play Russell Henley, Taylor Gooch, Mito Pereira.
Yep.
So
you said my other guy was Harris English, and he's been playing really, really well.
I don't have anything bad to say about those. A lot of those 2 hold that same nostalgia for me when it comes to these last 2 weeks of golf, the Scottish Open and the British Open. So I don't have anything bad to say. I would play some of those as well. For talking now, squeeze in some super value picks. I could have put this in the last round, but Tringali checks a lot of the boxes for me this week. 7,000 on DraftKings and 7,900 on FanDuel, which is pretty unheard of if you're trying to cross over lineups. It's usually like $1,500 to $2,000 difference between the two. And this week, Tringali only has a $900 difference, which sometimes you end up leaving on the table. So that could be a great value pick for you. And the other one that I like, I played last week on a whim, strictly based on data. I knew nothing about this guy. However, last week he did amazing, and that is Thomas Detry. I'm not quite sure even how to pronounce his name, but he's 6,600 on DraftKings. And then here's what I was talking about. He's 7,800 on FanDuel. He has not, he's played once and he did not make the cut last year. However, he has had 5 weeks of just really stellar golf for somebody that we haven't necessarily brought up on our shows or played in any of our models, with the worst finish of 22. He had 22, 22, 22, 15, 10 last week. So cheap pick, decent gamble, I'm in.
So we skipped over the biggest story, and he's at 7,500. It's the greatest golfer to ever walk the face of the earth, going back to St. Andrews, where he won his first Open Championship. Tiger Woods actually, he plays this course. And there's nobody that knows this course better than Tiger Woods because he's ultimate student of the game. He's made both cuts that he's participated in this year. And at this point in his career, he's going to get up for these types of performances. And this is not a tough golf course to walk. It's not undulating at all. We are talking about one of the flattest golf courses in the world. He knows this course like the back of his hand. He's been here all week playing with JT, playing with a bunch of different guys. I think that he can make a run and definitely pay off at his price point. I wouldn't like him over 8K, but with him at 7,500, depending on chalk, I will kind of gauge my exposure to him in my lineup pool. But I will have some Tiger Woods because, I mean, you cannot ignore how much he won by here. It was year 2000, but he won by double-digit shots here. And that's something that's never been done. So give me Tiger Woods at 7,500. And, of course, at 6,900 is a guy I didn't play last week, and I'm kicking myself because he ended up runner-up at the Scottish, Mr. Chico NorCal, Kurt Kitayama himself, who I congratulated via DM on Monday after the tournament, and he thanked me for his for the accolades I gave him. But yeah, the dude is a great chipper, a great putter. He's a low ball flight guy because he grew up playing in the wind like me. I think that he doesn't fit many courses at this point in his career because he's still kind of finding his way through the tour. But he earned his way into this tournament last week with that runner-up finish at the Scottish, and he just fits the course. He's going to get around just fine. And with that short game that he has, I think he could definitely pay off at 6,900.
So Kitayama's in my pool for sure. Tiger. So every single time Tiger plays a tournament, I have shares of Tiger. I like Tiger. I root for Tiger. I grew up on Tiger. So I'm definitely never going to be fully out on Tiger. The concerning thing from a strategy standpoint is, though, to Bo's point, he's cheap-ish. He's in with a lot of guys that I just feel have a better overall chance of being top 10 or even winning. So while I'll play some Tiger, I don't see him winning. I'd love to see him win. I'd love the story of it. I think it'd be amazing. I think it would be a fitting victory given the history of this particular year. So I'm pulling for him, but
just having him here is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to see him play. But I would have some shares, but I wouldn't spend a lot on him.
Kitayama is nowhere in my pool. I was just scrolling again to make sure, and I absolutely deleted him because I didn't even get this far down my spreadsheet. So he's not in my pool.
That. You might want to fix that.
No, I don't need to fix that.
Shout out NorCal.
If you missed the start of the broadcast, it's where Bo was saying, if you're following me, you're probably winning. So I don't have Kitayama in my lineup, nor do I have Bryson DeChambeau. So do with that what you will.
Why am I here?
You want a couple other ones that you're not going to have in your player pool down here?
Bring it on, Connor.
So first one, just because it's fresh in my head, is Tom Kim, who's Yo-Hung Kim, who is probably going to pick up some steam being third place last week in Scotland. But something to know about this guy is he is a legit player, spends most of his time on the Asian Tour and the World Tour. He's number 39 in the OWGR, though, and I think that flew way under the radar going into last week. This is a guy that at that price, 100% can win this golf tournament. And the interesting thing is if you kind of look at his results, he's got multiple top 10s. He's got a win. He's got multiple runner-ups. He's had 14 starts. He's only missed the cut twice. And this is a guy, again, that plays overseas. He's a little more fine-tuned with different weather conditions, things like that. If they kick up, different surfaces. So I just like the overall skill set of him. But like I said, him coming in third last week, I think is going to definitely put him on more people's radar. But at that price point for him, I mean, that's a ridiculous value. It's $6,500. I mean, he ought to be up in the mid to high sevens, if not low eights, with the skill set that this kid's got. So I would definitely take a good look at him. That's a big value.
I really hadn't paid close attention to Tom Kim in a while until last week, and then I was like, well, let me dig a little deeper, and then holy crap, I was like, yeah, he's going in the pool.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like I said, I mean, I think he flew under the radar. Now, I will say I've listened to quite a few podcasts today, just kind of, we always try and not throw out the exact same stuff everybody else does, but that's one that I am hearing all over the place. So he's going to be popular, but that's, again, 6,500. It's a super value.
Oh yeah.
Thurston Lawrence is somebody who made my pool last week, strictly based on DP World Tour stats. He's at 65 as well. Now, objectively, I like Kim better than Lawrence, but he is somebody else to play. And then Chris Kirk, who's quietly been chugging along, playing well. And in particular, he's good off the tee. He's good around the green. If there's something that's scary, it's just his overall putting stat. But it's 6,800 rather. He rates out 33rd in my modeling. That's pretty good for a guy at $6,800. So I'll probably have a few shares of that. And then my guilty pleasure. Anytime you say short course, emphasis on around the green, approach and putting, my boy Kevin Kisner is making money.
I already knew.
We're gonna get him on the show someday, man. He goes on all.
We got to get Kiz on the show. He's a great dude.
Amazing, man. But
along the same lines, I'm playing a lot of the old geezer Stuart Sink this week too. He played really well last week. Showed me that he still got it. He's been playing pretty well all season. And at 6,800, I'll have a good amount of Stuart Sink too.
Okay.
See, there's people down here. I told you, there's some good plays down here.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
Not Kitayama for her though.
Not Kitayama. No. I'm passing. I absolutely deleted him. I went through and removed people from the top 40, I think it was probably. And that was one of them. He's no longer on my spreadsheet.
Ouch.
So
I'll have to send him. I'll have to tell him that. I'm gonna send him a snap of this.
Kelly in Phoenix is not a fan for the.
You got runner-up last week, and so she took you off her list completely after a runner-up finish.
Doesn't have kind enough eyes. Is that?
He's a super nice guy.
But does he have kind eyes?
Of course he does.
He's a
kind eyes helped me win last week also, but he's not playing. So, is Stuart's nickname everything but the kitchen sink? Hilarious, Craig.
No, it's not his nickname. Stitches. It's his middle name. It's his middle name. It's a little wordy, but his parents had a sense of humor.
I think it's hyphenated.
Hyphenated. Craig literally keeps me giggling throughout the show.
I have to be careful because he has multiple pictures of my face that he uses for gifts. So I got to be careful what I say.
He does of me too, but I think they're all before I started going gray over this last year and a half. So
he's already screen grabbed your new hairdo for future reference.
My new hairdo.
I've said it before, but I'm just going to keep muttering it. We should have him on sometime. He knows some picks.
Craig. He does. Yeah. Craig.
All right, so Kelly, you're going.
Yeah, let's get on out of here. Who's your? We already know who her MVP is. Fitzy. I'll let you go, Connor. Are you gonna do the Irish or the
Irish
or the Irish, the Northern Irish?
I am actually gonna plant my flag, man. I'm gonna go Justin Thomas again.
Justin Thomas. Wow.
I said I'm not afraid of him. I'll make him my captain, but Rory and Lowry will be heavily owned.
Yeah. I think I'm a little higher on Cam Smith than Rory. Like, I love Rory, but I'm gonna have the most Cam Smith, so I'll make him my captain because I feel the strongest about his game.
And if I'm being honest, man, I am going to do a lot of Rory JT lineups because I believe in some of those 6K values, and I think that that's going to make my lineup pretty different. So there's going to be a lot of Rory JT.
I didn't have a ton of 7s and 8s because of that. I found I liked a lot of the 9s and 6s more.
Yep. So I'm
just over here cringing, and I could be completely wrong, but man, this is.
We really hope you are for once. We need it. We need you to be wrong for once.
Yeah, I'm 0% Fitz. So if Fitz wins this thing, I'm not making any money this week.
No.
0 Fitz for you.
Not
0.
a drop of Fitz. I won't.
Right.
I'm gonna have about 15% Fitz.
I've been beat up too many times by Fitz. That little man.
That little man.
He is a little man.
Making me some money. You guys, this was a really fun show, even though I'm in a hotel room using like all of my jankiest equipment, my traveling ring light and all. I appreciate it. Good shirt there. Little shout out to the Scott Fish Bowl. Football season.
I just made a pick a minute ago.
Is on
I'm not
the
good
way.
enough season long to get into stuff like that, but I'll see you on the DraftKings side of football.
Oh yeah.
Well, everybody, tune in again. We've made this a weekly show. If you weren't aware and you were tuning in bi-weekly, we've been doing this as a weekly show, and we would love to see you next week, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Tune in. Bye.